Welcome. Today is all about understanding the art and science of staying aware in an unpredictable world. If you're looking to navigate public spaces, handle emergencies, or just enhance your general readiness, then developing situational awareness is one of the most impactful skills you can have. It's not about living in fear. It's about moving with confidence because you're prepared for whatever life might throw at you. Situational awareness can seem like a big, intimidating phrase. But broken down, it's simply paying attention to your environment, recognizing meaningful patterns, and understanding how events might unfold so that you can respond effectively. One way professionals describe it is through the OODA Loop: observe, orient, decide, and act. By following those 4 steps, you build a mental framework for staying ahead of potential dangers rather than reacting too late. In this conversation, we'll explore how situational awareness connects to some powerful concepts like ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, along with PNT, which stands for positioning, navigation, and timing. We'll also discuss establishing a COP, or common operational picture, so that everyone involved in a situation has the same view of the environment, threats, and resources. Now you might be thinking, those sound like military terms, but there's plenty we can learn from them to apply in everyday life. We'll also look at common threats, from terrorism to active shooters and civil unrest, and then move into best practices for daily routines, emergency preparedness, mental resilience, and more. The overall idea is that understanding how to gather information, interpret it, and share it with those around you can dramatically raise the level of safety in your home, neighborhood, and community. One of the first steps is to become more intentional about the way you look at the world around you. A key principle is establishing a baseline. Imagine you walk into a grocery store. The normal baseline there would be people pushing carts, items neatly stocked on the shelves, employees in matching uniforms, and maybe some casual chatter. If you notice someone pacing around restlessly, scanning every aisle, or mumbling angrily at random passersby, that stands out from the baseline. Something about that person's body language and behavior deviates from what's typical in the store environment. That's your first sign of an anomaly. It doesn't necessarily mean you're in danger, but it tells you to shift your level of alertness up a notch. In color code terms, you might move from condition white, unaware, into condition yellow, which is relaxed alert. You're still calm, but now you're paying more attention to that anomaly to see if it escalates. If the person suddenly starts shouting or acting violently, you shift into condition orange or red, preparing yourself to respond quickly. An effective technique for honing this skill is the OODA Loop. First, you observe the environment. Next, you orient by factoring in your own knowledge, biases, and experiences. Then you decide how you'll respond. Maybe you'll take a different route or prepare to call for help. Lastly, you act on that decision. The beauty of the OODA Loop is that it's meant to cycle continuously. If the situation changes, you start the cycle again, potentially revising your strategy. This helps keep you flexible and responsive. Another concept that complements situational awareness is ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. This might sound very military, but it basically means you gather information, watch carefully, then interpret what you see so you can make informed decisions. In everyday life, you might do this instinctively, like scanning a new restaurant, noting exits, mentally recording how many people are in there, and spotting if anyone seems upset or intoxicated. That's your personal version of ISR, even if you've never called it that. It's valuable to identify some of the big picture threats that drive the need for situational awareness. While you can't eliminate every risk, you can dramatically reduce your vulnerability by understanding how certain threats tend to occur and how you can anticipate them before they escalate. Terrorism is one threat that often involves extensive planning by the perpetrator. They may scout locations ahead of time, noting security cameras, guard rotations, and times of high foot traffic. On a smaller scale, a lone individual with extremist beliefs might be looking for an easy opportunity in a crowded or symbolic spot. In an everyday civilian context, you can practice vigilance by identifying suspicious packages, cars parked in odd places for too long, or individuals who appear to be surveilling a building without any clear purpose. Active shooter situations are another concern. The key recommended response is often summarized as run, hide, fight. Run if you have a safe route of escape. Hide if you can't run, and secure or barricade yourself if possible. Fight if your life is in immediate danger and no other options remain. Recognizing early indicators, like someone angrily brandishing a weapon or hearing the first shots in the distance, allows you to enter the OODA Loop more quickly. Observe your exits, orient by knowing where you are in the building, decide whether you can flee, and act accordingly. Of course, these decisions often happen in seconds or less, which is why mental rehearsals can be helpful. You don't want to be paralyzed by indecision in a crisis. Civil unrest can erupt when large groups gather for a protest, a rally, or a spontaneous demonstration. Often, everything remains peaceful, but tensions can rise rapidly. If people start throwing objects, physically confronting each other, or turning aggressive toward law enforcement, a formerly peaceful crowd can quickly become dangerous. During such events, situational awareness is crucial. If you're just trying to get home from work and you see a large protest forming, evaluate whether you can take another route. If caught in the middle, maintaining a calm demeanor, staying at the edges rather than the heart of the gathering, and observing crowd moods can help you exit more safely. Healthcare crises or pandemics aren't usually what we imagine when we talk about immediate, life-threatening danger, but they can create an unstable environment in a different way. If basic services start shutting down, if groceries and medications become harder to find, or if people are on edge about infection risks, normal social rules can change. Practicing positioning, navigation, and timing, or PNT, might mean planning your errands at less crowded hours, or choosing certain routes that allow for you to stay clear. It's a subtle form of situational awareness, but understanding the environment and adjusting your movements accordingly can keep you safer. Natural disasters are far more common than most violent threats. Knowing how to handle hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, earthquakes, and wildfires starts with acknowledging that your environment can become dangerous with little warning. Pay attention to local weather alerts or citywide announcements. If you're on the coast and a severe hurricane is projected, preparing an evacuation plan ahead of time might save your life. If you're in tornado country, identifying safe rooms or basement shelters in advance can be crucial. This is where positioning, navigation, and timing also come into play. Knowing exactly where you are, where safety is located, and how long you have to get there before the event hits. It might sound like a lot to always be aware of everything, but situational awareness can be incorporated into daily routines in a way that feels natural, not stressful. It starts at home, often right when you wake up. A quick glance outside to note any unusual cars parked nearby, or a check to see if your home's exterior shows any signs of tampering, can be done in seconds. Once you're heading out, scanning your driveway or hallway ensures nothing is out of the ordinary. This is your personal ISR, your intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance routine, done in small, efficient steps. If you're out in public, keep your phone in a pocket or purse rather than constantly in your hand. Yes, you want it accessible, but you don't want it to become a distraction. When walking to your car in a parking lot, look around to see if anyone appears to be following you or if any vehicles are acting oddly, maybe circling around without parking. By doing this, you're effectively constructing your own mini-common operational picture, your COP, of the parking lot. You see who's parked where, how many people are walking around, any unusual movements or groups, and so on. Once you're in a restaurant, take a moment to note the exits, just as you might do on a plane. Don't fixate on it, but just let yourself be aware of the layout so that if there's an emergency, like a fire, a medical situation, or a sudden confrontation, you'll know where to move. If you have kids, make it a habit to point out exits to them and consider meeting points if you have to evacuate separately. This might sound dramatic, but it becomes second nature if you do it consistently. At work or in school settings, you can keep situational awareness high by respecting access control policies. People often hold doors open for strangers to be polite, but in certain buildings with badge access, that can introduce unnecessary risks. Another aspect of daily vigilance is paying attention to what coworkers or classmates are doing. Is someone in an agitated state? Has something just happened that escalates tension in the environment? Being attuned to social dynamics can sometimes forestall bigger problems. When traveling, positioning, navigation, and timing become even more important. If you're in a new city, make sure you know where your hotel is relative to major landmarks so you have a sense of direction. Mapping out a couple of safe routes can be a lifesaver if a protest flares up or if there's some kind of local emergency. If you're driving, keeping enough distance from the car ahead of you is a simple but overlooked tactic. It gives you room to maneuver if someone tries to block you in or if a sudden hazard appears. Even with the best awareness, emergencies can still happen. That's why it's wise to have a plan. It doesn't need to be complicated. Start with an evacuation strategy at home. Identify 2 exits from each room, usually a door and a window, and pick a safe gathering spot outside where everyone knows to regroup. Practice this plan occasionally so you don't have to rely on memory during a real crisis. That's your common operational picture for your home environment. Everyone in the household is on the same page. For bigger disasters, it's worth having a go bag with supplies like water, non-perishable food, flashlights, batteries, first aid kits, cash, and copies of important documents. Keep it somewhere you can grab it quickly. If you're in a region prone to hurricanes, having plywood or shutters ready for windows, storing extra drinking water, and knowing how to track a storm's progression are all part of PNT, understanding when and where a storm will make landfall, planning your route if you need to evacuate, and timing your departure to avoid last-minute traffic jams. If you ever find yourself in an active shooter scenario, the first decision is whether you can safely run. This might depend on your understanding of the environment. If you're intimately familiar with the building's layout, you'll know how to slip away from the incident site. If running isn't an option, find a room that can be locked and barricaded. You can use desks, chairs, or even your belt to secure the door. The aim is to create as many layers of difficulty as possible for the aggressor. Fight only if you must, and if you do, use every advantage you can. Throw objects, use makeshift weapons, and create chaos to disorient them. In civil unrest situations, your best bet is often to avoid hotspots. Many times, official warnings or news channels will let people know where demonstrations are happening. If you stumble upon one, stay near the periphery. If tension suddenly escalates, you'll have an easier time stepping away. Keep an eye on crowd behaviors. Watch for signs of aggression, like people picking up objects or forming tight clusters around certain leaders, or the presence of police lines wearing riot gear. Understanding that these signals might indicate an impending shift in crowd dynamics is basically a form of on-the-fly surveillance and reconnaissance. Healthcare crises can be tricky because they often unfold over weeks or months rather than minutes. Awareness in this realm means staying up to date on reputable health advisories, adjusting your daily routines based on local infection rates, and maintaining a small stock of essentials. Remember that situational awareness isn't just about immediate threats. It's also about long-term readiness and the ability to adapt quickly if something like a new outbreak emerges. Tools can elevate your situational awareness without replacing the fundamental skill of simply paying attention. One of the simplest tools you can carry is a small flashlight. Power outages, dark parking garages, or any number of unforeseen circumstances can put you at a disadvantage if you can't see clearly. A reliable flashlight that fits in your pocket or purse can help you read signs, look under your car, or check a dimly lit hallway. Another item some people carry is a personal alarm or whistle, useful for drawing attention if you're threatened. Pepper spray or other self-defense tools might also be an option, depending on your local laws. If you do carry them, make sure you practice and know how to use them effectively. In terms of digital tools, a smartphone can help you stay informed, but it can also become a distraction. Balancing those two sides is important. If you're in a large protest, for instance, using your phone to check real-time updates can be helpful, but keep your head on a swivel so you don't miss anything in your immediate surroundings. If you rely on GPS for navigation, consider having a paper map as a backup in case your phone battery dies or the signal drops. Some families and communities also use group text messaging or chat apps to create their own small-scale common operational picture, or COP. By sharing updates like "Road to the South is blocked, might want to head north," everyone in the group has a more unified sense of what's going on. This concept is borrowed from military operations, but it works just as well for coordinating a safe exit from a big music festival or planning a meetup during a large city event. Improving your situational awareness becomes easier if you're also improving your personal readiness skills like first aid, self-defense, or even amateur radio communication. Many community centers, police departments, or fire departments offer workshops on emergency preparedness. Some hold stop the bleed courses where you can learn to control severe bleeding with direct pressure or a tourniquet. That's a skill that could save a life if an accident or violent incident occurs. Sometimes you can build partnerships with neighbors or local businesses. If your neighborhood forms a community watch, everyone becomes an extra set of eyes and ears. This effectively creates a broader intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance network, raising overall safety. If someone notices a suspicious person checking out cars late at night, they can alert the group. That real-time sharing of information also leads to a more cohesive COP. Everyone's viewpoint is pooled together. Schools and workplaces can take this a step further by having regular drills that incorporate PNT, positioning, navigation, and timing, so people know exactly where to go during an evacuation or shelter-in-place order. If the entire group understands the plan, they can move quickly and in an organized way. It reduces panic because people aren't left guessing about next steps. Situational awareness isn't just physical, it's also mental. If you can't manage stress or panic, you might freeze at the worst possible time, missing critical cues that could have helped you escape or respond effectively. One way to cultivate mental resilience is through controlled breathing techniques. Even something as simple as inhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, and holding again for 4 can calm your heart rate and help you think clearly. This is sometimes referred to as box breathing. Regular exercise can also improve your capacity to handle anxiety. When your body is used to the stress of working out, it adapts more easily when adrenaline surges. That doesn't mean you need to become an extreme athlete. Even consistent moderate exercise can enhance stamina and reduce your likelihood of going into panic mode when faced with a sudden threat. A big part of mental resilience is avoiding normalcy bias, which is the tendency to believe that everything is fine because nothing has ever gone catastrophically wrong for you before. Taking a few moments here and there to consider how you'd handle a crisis, maybe on your commute. You imagine how you'd respond if your car broke down in a bad neighborhood, helps you be mentally flexible. It's not about being paranoid, but about being prepared to adapt if something does go sideways. There are many everyday hacks that feed into stronger situational awareness. One is using reflections and shadows. If you suspect someone might be trailing you on the sidewalk, you can glance into car windows or reflective storefront glass to see behind you without obviously turning your head. That gives you crucial intelligence without tipping off the possible follower. If you're in a crowded elevator, position yourself near the controls so you can stop it at a floor if needed. If you're alone and someone suspicious steps in, you can quickly exit at the next floor. That's a small situational advantage. Another practical trick is to vary your routine slightly. If you drive the same path, park in the same space, and leave at the same time each day, someone with ill intent can predict your schedule. By mixing up your routes, you're harder to track. When you're out at a restaurant, try to sit where you can see the entrances. That's a tip often employed by police officers and veterans. Being able to monitor foot traffic helps you detect potential threats earlier. If something goes wrong, you'll also have a better sense of where to exit. Improvising in emergencies can be life-saving too. If you don't have medical supplies but need to stop severe bleeding, a clean t-shirt or dishcloth pressed firmly against the wound is better than nothing. An office chair or a fire extinguisher can serve as a barrier or makeshift weapon if you have no other defense. A belt can be used to secure a door or create a quick tourniquet if absolutely necessary, though purpose-made tourniquets are much safer and more reliable. For those who travel, using local knowledge can be a game changer. The best restaurants and tourist spots might be online, but local insight on which neighborhoods to avoid after dark is often not as obvious. Engage in a little reconnaissance by asking hotel staff or local shopkeepers if they recommend certain areas or if there have been issues with petty crime nearby. That simple conversation can give you intel that changes your route or your activity times. Situational awareness is a skill that develops over time. Think of it like going to the gym. The more you work at it, the more automatic it becomes. Gradually, you'll find yourself scanning parking lots without consciously deciding to, or you'll reflexively notice which exits are closest when you enter a building. You'll build your own personal intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance routine without even thinking about it. You'll also become more adept at positioning, navigation, and timing in daily life, whether it's planning the safest route during civil unrest or figuring out how to avoid large crowds when a new public health concern arises. Adopting a common operational picture with your family, friends, or co-workers allows everyone to share relevant information and stay on the same page about potential threats. It fosters a collective awareness that can really level up the security of a household or a workplace. And let's not forget the OODA Loop, which remains one of the most intuitive models for responding effectively to an evolving situation. You observe, orient, decide, and act. Then you do it all over again as the environment changes. If you want to take all of this further, you can explore training opportunities like first aid certification, advanced self-defense, or community-based preparedness programs. Even simpler steps like practicing your home evacuation plan can pay off big time if an actual crisis ever hits. Building mental resilience through mindfulness, breath control, and a healthy lifestyle will also help you maintain clarity under pressure. In the end, the goal here is empowerment. You don't have to walk around in a state of panic or see everyone as a threat. Instead, you become someone who sees the world more clearly. You gather the intelligence you need to feel prepared. You scan your environment, like your own personal surveillance, and conduct reconnaissance in unfamiliar territory so you understand the layout, the people, and how you'd respond if something happens. You incorporate positioning, navigation, and timing for everything from travel plans to daily errands. You keep an OODA Loop mindset, observing first, orienting yourself, deciding, then acting, so you're less likely to freeze. And by sharing a common operational picture with your friends, family, or coworkers, you extend that sphere of awareness. Day by day, you'll get better at noticing small changes in your surroundings. You'll develop the calm self-assurance that comes from having a plan, from knowing how to secure a door, to improvising if you're cornered, to responding quickly if a natural disaster strikes. It's a deeply rewarding practice that can enrich not just your safety, but your entire perspective on life, because you'll be fully present in each moment. Thank you for being a part of this discussion. May these insights serve you well in your day-to-day experiences. Stay aware, stay adaptable, and keep seeking knowledge. With each small step, you'll become more capable of protecting yourself and those around you. And that, ultimately, is what situational awareness is all about.